Around 6 minutes, please, Ms. Chair.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Women, life, freedom. The rallying cry of Iran's protest movement is a simple yet powerful one. Ignited by the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in September, just days after her arrest for letting too much hair show from under her headscarf. The uprising has been compounded by decades of anger and repression. Even the widespread execution of protesters has failed to diminish the resolve of those fighting for justice. And it is not just women who have found themselves on the front line. Among the protesters this month, journalist Scott Peterson reported that a team of 3 middle-aged men that embark on nighttime missions, one drives, another one films, and the third sprays anti-regime slogans and the names of those killed on the walls of militia, government and religious centres. Wishing to remain anonymous, they said, "We are all like drops, but when we become rivers, then we become oceans and we are united." These men have witnessed the state-sanctioned oppression of women for years and understand that real change requires everyone to play their part. In every corner of the world, to varying degrees, women and girls still find themselves shamefully at high risk of experiencing gender-based violence. And I am thankful to the Cabinet Secretary for today's debate and the Minister, which recognises the crucial role men must play in its eradication during this global 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The statistics that we have heard from the United Nations are chilling and they merit repeating. More than 1 in 3 women will experience gender-based violence in their lifetime, and more than 5 are killed every hour by someone in their own family. From the time of the beginning of this debate to the end of this debate, Presiding Officer, 10 women will have been killed. As a Pakistani woman, I'm not blinkered to the issues within my own communities, and I would like to take this opportunity to highlight the important work of charities here in Scotland and in Glasgow, such as Amina, the Women's Muslim Research Centre, an award-winning organisation recognised by Black and minority ethnic and Muslim communities for its pioneering and responsive approach to addressing issues and the needs of BME and Muslim women. Amina's focus recently has been on raising awareness around honour-based abuse perpetrated against a woman who is perceived to have brought shame on her family. Perceived usually by men. Last year, during the 16 days of activism, Amina held a vigil to commemorate the lives of Black and minority women and Muslim women who lost their lives as a result of this. And I attended that vigil and I stood alongside men and imams and women as I read out the names of the women who had lost their lives. So change is happening, but not fast enough, as we know. Women like Anita Ginda from Glasgow, who was killed in 2003, just aged 22. Anita had refused to follow through on a forced marriage and fled to London to rebuild her life and marry the man that she loved, thinking that she had escaped. But Anita was brutally killed 2 years later, strangled in front of her 18-month-old son while she was 8.5 months pregnant. Stories like Anita's are horrific and uncomfortable to listen to, but we must use this momentum built by these global campaigns to push for the behavioural shift required that will end systemic violence against women. It is, as we have acknowledged, the responsibility of men to address and control their behaviour, to be positive role models for younger generations, and to challenge systems and attitudes around masculinity that normalise gender inequality. Nevertheless, we do have a collective role to play, and I join the Ministers and the Cabinet Secretary in applauding Police Scotland's That Guy campaign, which brings these issues to the forefront and has helped stimulate important conversations. I'm also pleased that the Scottish Government remains committed to the continued evaluation and development of its Equally Safe strategy to eradicate violence against women, with the £9.5 million that is being provided to 121 projects in just its first 6 months. Early intervention and preventative measures are a critical factor in the success of this strategy, which has been developed by Rape Crisis, amongst others that my colleagues have mentioned, including the University of Glasgow in my constituency. It encourages secondary schools to take a holistic approach to preventing gender-based violence, with student voices at the forefront. And I welcome this approach preventative approach and education in building and maintaining healthy relationships and the meaning of consent. It's also important that we as MSPs continue with our schools to engage with them and local authorities to encourage leadership in this area and lead by example in the way that we conduct ourselves. And I note today that I think we have around 70 men that have been elected to this Parliament, presiding officer, and I thank all the men that are currently in the chamber and the ones that were here previously. I finish with the words of former Secretary-General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. Violence against women is never acceptable, never excusable and never tolerable. If we want women and girls in Scotland to grow up with equal opportunities in a truly equal society, nobody can afford to sit on the sidelines, especially not the men.